Vikings, let's win this game.
Vikings fan. Minnesota has entered a wild stretch of decisions. Serious trade talks have just surfaced involving a big name on the roster. Then, an unexpected signing reshaped the plans for the offense. In the middle of all that, a quiet move managed to keep an important piece of the team in place, along with a huge debate about who could take over the offense. Now all eyes are turning to the move the team may make with Jonathan Greenard. We are bringing you those details and more starting right now. Man, this was one of those plot twists nobody saw coming in Minnesota. For most of the past few weeks, there was basically only one conversation happening around the league. The team was trying to create salary cap space. Several contracts were being reviewed. Players were popping up in rumors about possible exits. And it looked like it was only a matter of time before an important piece of the offense would be out of the roster. But the story took a different turn. The situation involved a veteran who arrived with high expectations. A player who brought experience to the backfield and helped give identity to the running game. But last season was complicated. Injuries showed up, the rhythm dropped in some games, and that started raising doubts inside the organization. In that scenario, the name Aaron Jones began circulating heavily in trade rumors, or even a possible release. The initial plan seemed clear. If the team managed to trade Jones, it could open almost $10 million in salary cap space. If they chose to release him directly, they would still save more than $7 million. During a financial adjustment period, that made plenty of sense. There was just one problem. When other teams realize you plan to cut a player, nobody rushes to make a deal. And that is exactly what happened. Minnesota explored possibilities. They talked with teams. They tried to find a trade partner. Nothing happened. Then came the twist. Instead of moving on from the running back, the front office decided to sit down again with the player and his representatives. The talks progressed quickly. Shortly before the official start of the new league year, the deal was reached. Aaron Jones agreed to reduce his base salary from $9 million to $5.5 million in 2026. Yes, a significant pay cut. But the most important part is what it represents. Jones remains in Minnesota for at least one more season. And that completely changes the structure of the backfield heading into next year. Because now the offense keeps the same duo of running backs that finished last season. Jones continues bringing field vision and experience. Meanwhile, Jordan Mason remains that physical runner who wears defenses down. That combination could be very interesting if the offense finds consistency. Now let's be clear here. Keeping Aaron Jones does not mean every problem on offense is solved. The running game still needs more explosiveness. The team must improve in red zone situations. And above all, there is still a huge question hanging over the offense. Who will be the quarterback? That answer has not arrived yet, and it could completely change the direction of the next season. But before we get to that conversation, I want to hear from you. Tell me in the comments, did you like the decision to keep Aaron Jones in Minnesota? Or did you think it was time to move in a different direction in the backfield? Because the next story in this breakdown involves a very different kind of move inside the roster. It is not a trade. It is not a blockbuster signing. But it is the type of quiet decision that keeps an important gear of the team running. And when you look closely, you realize it carries more importance than many people imagine. Quick request. Subscribe to the channel and jump into the comments. Your opinion matters here. Let's keep going. While many people were only looking at possible trades, big signings, and the quarterback saga, the team made a move that is typical of organizations trying to keep everything organized internally. No giant headline, no massive contract. But it is the type of decision that keeps the team functioning smoothly throughout the season, because there is a side of football almost nobody remembers until something goes wrong. Special teams. That unit rarely becomes the highlight on sports shows. But inside a competitive roster, it is absolutely essential. And that is exactly where Minnesota decided to act behind the scenes in recent days. First came a contract extension that many outside the fan base did not immediately notice. It was one of those names that rarely shows up during the broadcast. But inside the organization, it is treated as a fully trusted piece. We are talking about long snapper Andrew DePaula. Yes, that job almost nobody notices when everything works correctly. But when it goes wrong, it becomes chaos on the field. DePaula has been in Minnesota since 2020, and since then he has become almost a standard of consistency in that unit. The player has accumulated multiple All-Pro and Pro Bowl selections during that period. That is something extremely rare for that position. Now he has signed a new one-year, fully guaranteed contract worth approximately $1.7 million. It may look small compared to other NFL contracts, but within the team's logic it represents stability in one of the most technical areas of the roster. And the interesting detail about DePaula's story always grabs attention. Before securing a stable position in the NFL, he worked regular jobs. That included bartending while he was still chasing his football football career. After years fighting for opportunities, he found a real home in Minnesota. He now enters his 12th season in the league. But that was not the only movement involving special teams. Another important name in that unit also secured his return. Defensive back Tavieri Thomas signed a new 2-year deal with the Vikings valued at around $4.6 million. And here is a statistic that explains a lot. Last season, Thomas participated in 83% of the team's special teams snaps. That shows how central he is to that group. On top of that, Minnesota also applied the so-called soft tender to Ivan Pace Jr. This move gives the team the right to match any contract offer another team makes to the player. If no offer appears, he remains with the team for slightly above $3 million. So, 3 different decisions all pointing in the same direction, keeping the structure of the roster functioning. Of course, the entire fan base knows those moves are not the biggest topic right now. They are important, yes, but everyone is looking at another position, quarterback. Because there is a situation developing around the league that could open a massive door for Minnesota in the coming days. If that happens, the impact on the offense could be enormous. Now the conversation starts getting hotter, because when the topic is quarterback in Minnesota, any rumor immediately turns into debate among fans who live and breathe Vikings football every day. And in recent days, an analysis surfaced that reignited this entire discussion. It started with an insider who has covered the team for years, someone who usually does not throw opinions into the air without checking the numbers first. He once again publicly defended a possibility that had already been circulating among fans. The idea was to bet on a quarterback who might soon become available on the market. Before revealing the name, it helps to understand why this conversation gained traction. The Vikings still need to decide who will lead the offense next season. There are concerns about salary, long-term planning, and immediate competitiveness. In other words, the front office wants someone capable of keeping the offense functioning without compromising the financial future of the roster. That was the scenario when journalist Matthew Collar from Purple Insider brought back an analysis he had previously presented days earlier. According to him, there is a lot of questionable interpretation surrounding the performance of a certain quarterback in the NFL. That name is Kyler Murray, the same Kyler Murray who spent years as the face of the Arizona Cardinals franchise. Collar argued again that if Murray were actually released by Arizona, Minnesota could find a rare opportunity on the market. The main argument revolves around 3 factors: cost, production, and flexibility within the offensive scheme. First comes the financial aspect. If the quarterback were cut, much of his guaranteed salary would remain the responsibility of the Cardinals. That would allow Minnesota to sign Murray for a much lower amount than normally paid for a starting quarterback with his experience. Then comes production. Collar highlighted that when looking at advanced metrics across multiple seasons, Murray consistently grades out as an above-average quarterback in the league. He is not perfect, but he is solid enough to elevate an offense that already has important weapons. Then comes the third factor: style of play. Murray has always been known for his mobility. He can extend plays, he can run when necessary, and that creates additional problems for opposing defenses. In an offense that already has explosive receivers and reliable middle-of-the-field options, that mobility could open new tactical possibilities. Of course, not everyone agrees with that view. Part of the fan base prefers a more traditional pocket quarterback. There are also questions about consistency across seasons, and some still remember irregular moments he had in Arizona. But when you look at the current market, very few options offer that type of upside without demanding a massive contract. That is exactly why this discussion has been gaining momentum among people following the team closely. Now I want to hear from you. Tell me in the comments, if Kyler Murray becomes available, would you like to see him wearing purple and gold in Minnesota? Because while that debate grows, another possibility has started circulating around the league. This one involves the offense directly. Now pay attention to this possibility that started circulating behind the scenes in the league. It is not confirmed. It is not an advanced negotiation. But when analysts start building scenarios like this, it usually means something inside the NFL landscape is shifting. And this time, the conversation involves a trade. It began with an analysis from a Bleacher Report journalist looking at the situation of the Saints offense. The New Orleans team made an important move early in the league's negotiation period. They reached a deal with running back Travis Etienne coming from the Jacksonville Jaguars. That changes the structure of their backfield quite a bit, because when a young running back arrives with room to grow inside the offense, another name often ends up in a delicate position on the roster. That is exactly what started raising discussion around one of the most recognizable running backs in the NFL. The name in question is Alvin Kamara. The same Alvin Kamara, who for years has been one of the main offensive weapons for the Saints. With ETN arriving to split touches in the offense, some analysts started seeing the possibility that New Orleans could consider moving Kamara. That could happen through a release or a trade. That is where a scenario involving Minnesota appeared. The projection was simple. The Vikings could send a 6th-round pick in the 2026 draft to the Saints in exchange for Alvin Kamara. When you look at the role inside the offense, the idea actually makes some sense. Kamara has always been known for his ability as a receiver coming out of the backfield. Over the course of his career, he has accumulated impressive numbers in that area. He also ranks among the leaders in receiving yards among active running backs in the league. That means he would not be just a traditional runner. He could act as a passing weapon on 3rd downs. That is the safety valve quarterbacks love to have when pressure arrives. Now imagine that scenario in Minnesota. One physical runner handling early downs, another creating explosive plays catching passes in open space. That combination could bring interesting balance to the offense. But of course, this still lives in the territory of projections, especially because the Vikings' backfield situation recently changed when the team decided to keep Aaron Jones after renegotiating his contract. On top of that, Jordan Mason remains on the roster. He could take on an even bigger role, so the question naturally appears, is it worth giving up a draft pick to bring Alvin Kamara? Some fans see it as an opportunity to add offensive talent. Others prefer to keep draft capital for the future. And any offensive move Minnesota makes still depends on the biggest decision of all: who will command the offense? Now hold on to this story because it truly started shaking things behind the scenes around the league. When an elite pass rusher appears in trade conversations, half of the NFL immediately pays attention. In recent days, a name connected to Minnesota's defense started showing up in phone calls from multiple teams. It was not a single rumor. There were multiple inquiries. The situation gained traction after a strange sequence of moves in the league's pass rusher market. First, there was the negotiation involving Max Crosby that ultimately did not happen. Then another star edge rusher closed a deal somewhere else. The result of all that was simple. Teams desperate for quarterback pressure suddenly had fewer clear options available. When that happens, general managers start scanning the rest of the league. That is when the name Jonathan Greenard entered the conversation. According to information shared by NFL insiders, several teams began calling Minnesota asking about the status of the pass rusher. One of the teams that showed curiosity was the Philadelphia Eagles. They recently lost an important player at that position and are searching for pass rush help. When you look at Greenard's recent performance, the interest becomes easy to understand. He is still in the prime stage of his career. He turns 29 years old this season. Over the last few years, he has accumulated strong numbers pressuring opposing quarterbacks. In 2024, he finished among the league leaders in total pressures. He trailed only major names such as Myles Garrett and Trey Hendrickson. Now comes the detail that complicates everything. Jonathan Greenard signed a 4-year contract worth about $76 million with Minnesota. Over time, that deal started looking like a true bargain for a pass rusher of his level. And when that happens in the NFL, the next step is often predictable. The player wants a new deal. Recent reports suggest Greenard is seeking a contract that places him closer to the highest-paid edge rushers in the league. That puts the Vikings front office in a complicated position. There are 2 possible paths. The first is simple: pay the player and keep him as the central piece of the defense. The second involves evaluating the market. It also means considering a trade if a very strong offer appears. Some insiders suggest a deal like that could involve a 2nd-round draft pick. Others believe Minnesota would only start conversations if the proposal approached a 1st-round pick. Greenard is not just another player on the roster. He is one of the engines of the defense. He is capable of changing the rhythm of a game when he reaches the quarterback. At the same time, the NFL is a business league, and difficult decisions are part of building a roster. The question hanging in the air is enormous. Will Minnesota pay to keep Jonathan Greenard as the leader of the defense? Or could the team truly consider a trade if a massive offer appears? Now look at the magnitude of the moment the Vikings are living through. A veteran running back accepting a pay cut to keep wearing purple and gold. Important special teams pieces being retained to keep the team structure stable. The entire fan base debating whether Kyler Murray could become the next quarterback of the offense. Rumors of Alvin Kamara appearing in possible trade scenarios. And at the same time, tension around the defensive future with Jonathan Greenard drawing interest from other teams. All of this happening at once. It is a clear signal of a franchise trying to adjust the roster to compete right now without destroying the future. And there is one thing people in Minnesota know very well. When big decisions start appearing like this, it usually means major changes are on the horizon. So let me hear from you as well. Drop a comment below. Which of these stories grabs your attention the most right now? The decision to keep Aaron Jones, the possibility of Kyler Murray, the Kamara trade rumor, or the situation involving Jonathan Greenard? See you in the next video. Stay tuned. SKOL Vikings, let's go!